What happens when your body gets full of physical toxins? Your brain is a generator of electrical activity and sound and scalar waves. And scalar waves are just these high frequency types of waves that are a subtle energy that's really kind of like the fabric of the universe. They travel through the universe through all matter and energy, and they're really what creates the matter and energy that we're familiar with. When these faster than light scalar waves slow down, they can coagulate into the conventional electromagnetic energy that we're familiar with, and also it can turn into matter. And what makes it do that is consciousness itself. So this energy is like zipping through the cosmos, and it's spiraling and branching as it goes, which are known as fractals. So it's spiraling fractals of energy that's going much, much faster than the speed of light. And it flows from the center of universes out to galaxies, from the center of the galaxies out to all of the suns in those galaxies, and then from the central suns to the farther away suns. And then from those suns, it goes out into the planets, and then from the planets it goes into us. Mm-hmm. So if you look at what's being shown, well, for example, like the Earth's magnetic field, we know that the Earth's magnetic field is like a donut, it's a torus. And so the energy flows into one pole and it flows out the other, and our bodies also have this torus-shaped field. So do solar systems, so do galaxies, so do universes. So you've got this torus-shaped energy that is like a structure that's recurring through all scales of size throughout the cosmos, from the galactic down to the subatomic. And this energy is flowing, from these larger nodes to these smaller nodes, and it comes into us through our DNA and through what the Chinese call the acupuncture meridians, and through the brain and the neural pathways. And the way that it does that is because we have these superconducting minerals in our bodies, known as monoatomic elements, also known as ormus. And those minerals plug into these superconducting junctures all along our nervous system and our spine and in our brain and the neural pathways and in our DNA. And because they're superconductors, they can pick up extremely weak fields. And so that is where consciousness meets physicality in the body. So the more toxic you are, those toxins will get in there and plug up those junctures. And that's why, for example, acupuncturists will stick a needle in them and mechanically open them up. And typically it's temporary because you don't change the habits of your eating and your lifestyle to stop clogging it up. So it's like, people go and eat a cheeseburger or whatever, and they clog it back up, and then they go to the acupuncturist and they get stuck and open the juncture back up. But if you're eating regenerative diet and detoxing the body constantly, then that doesn't happen, and those openings stay open. The superconductivity is high, and therefore the scalar energy flows really well. And that's what the Chinese call the flow of qi. They talk about blockages of qi and all of that. So the mind-body connection is this scalar energy of consciousness that flows through everything, and it comes in through us, through the DNA and the nervous system and the brain, and it's continually creating matter or recreating matter moment by moment. And that's how we create our reality. So if you understand that, you can live the way we were designed to live, which is not immersed in electromagnetic fields and eating live food that's high in nutrients and high in these superconducting ormus elements. And what will happen is it will enhance your consciousness, it'll make you smarter, it'll make you happier, it'll look better, everything. It's a whole ball of wax. So that's kind of, what people can do to protect themselves, and then how they can go beyond just surviving into thriving and having a great time and being uplifted through all the craziness that's going on the planet. Your brain picks up this pulsing in the Earth's atmosphere called the Schumann resonance, and it's created by these energies coming down to the surface of the Earth and then bouncing back up and hitting the ionosphere and then bouncing back and forth between the two of them at about 7.68 cycles per second. So our brains and our bodies are trained with that pulsing, and they're designed to do that, so that the Earth's pulse will relax us and slow us down and get us into deep sleep states at night. And because of all the man-made electro-pollution on the planet, because of just all the toxic things that we're doing, and the electric grid and all the man-made electrical devices on the planet, we've accelerated the Schumann resonance to about double of what it should be. So instead of being relaxed and listening to calm, the heartbeat of our mother, very nice and calm, we're listening to disco 24/7. So it doesn't matter where on the planet you are, you're going to be stressed to some degree by that. And so grounding and earthing, what that does is it reconnects you to the earth, and it helps ground off the EMF that is passing through your body constantly from all this man-made pollution. So it helps, but it's not the only solution out there. And you can do it wrong and actually increase the EMF in your body. It's like if you plug these, for example, these sheets into the outlet in your bedroom, and you're connected into the wiring of your house. Well, your house wiring is actually an antenna for EMF, so you're becoming part of that circuit, which is not a good idea.
And now there's smart grid technology, so it's kind of becoming unavoidable. They're implementing it everywhere.
Right, but what you can do is just run a wire into the ground and throw a metal stake and ground to that and have the grounding effect, proper grounding effect. But with all this, I'm actually getting ready to release a blog article and video about smart meters and all that, because it doesn't matter what the problem comes up. When you understand fundamentals like the flow of energy through the cosmos and how matter manifests, the same energies and polarities that are creating all these problems, their opposite polarities create the solution simultaneously.
That's right.
So you can't have one without the other. So all you have to do is look around to see, if you know what the problem is, start looking around for the solution, and you'll find it. If you look long enough, you'll find it because they're out there. Okay, I already know that you can neutralize nuclear radiation because I've witnessed that done. So what can I do with it? How can I do this? And so there's always a solution. And when you get that, then you don't have to worry about this stuff. You don't have to get in fear about whatever crazy mess that these, so-called leaders of our planet come up with. Because there's always a counter to whatever crazy stuff they're coming up with.
Oh, that's right. I also see tons of gadgets being sold on the internet to protect us from EMF, but which ones can you recommend? And also, I wanted to ask, is there some kind of placebo effect that's happening with some of those?
There can always be a placebo effect, and you have to ask yourself, what is the placebo effect? It's just us creating our reality. So you could intentionally create a placebo effect and protect yourself from EMF. I mean, just like, for example, you could get out in your backyard with a group of friends and do a meditation circle and create a scalar wave vortex and clear the skies of radiation and chemtrails. We have that power. It's just that you'd have to be out there 24/7 doing it. So, it's impractical. So we create these devices. But as far as what devices, to recommend, pretty much all of the passive EMF devices are very similar, and there's basically two technologies. One is where you take some nanocrystals of quartz, which is just quartz particles that are extremely small on a scale of just a few atoms bundled together in one particle. And when you get that scale of fine particle, those fine particles can become antennas for the scalar energy. And so when you've got a lot of them all together, they will put off a scalar field, and those scalar fields will structure electromagnetic radiation that's damaging. And it doesn't block it, because if you blocked it, for example, your cell phone wouldn't work. So what it does is these waves coming off, for example, a cell phone or any wireless device, they're very random and chaotic. They're shooting all around the place. They're bouncing around all over the place. But when they come into a properly structured scalar field, the scalar field will take all that random chaotic energy and make all the waves become parallel. In physics, that's known as coherence. And so when they become coherent, when they pass through your body, they interfere with cellular communication much, much less. And so, it can knock down like 90% or so of that noise in the background. And so your cells are trying to talk to each other constantly with radio waves and scalar waves and electrical impulses and chemistry and sound. And so, if you've got this EMF noise in the background, it's like driving down the road listening to the radio, and there's some static on the radio. And if there's a little bit of static, you can listen just fine and tolerate it. But if the static gets too loud, there's just no point in even trying to listen to the radio. And that's what goes on with your cells. So those passive devices structure the chaotic energy and make it coherent, so it's much quieter. And there's two basic technologies. One is either using those nanocrystals or taking a material, any material, and zapping it with scalar energy in a specific way, and that will rearrange the nucleus of the atoms of the material, and the nuclei, the geometry of the nuclei will change so that it's geometrically arranged differently, but it's still the same substance, and that will become an antenna for the scalar energy that's all around us, and so then that material will become a scalar wave transceiver. So they're basically, they work about the same, a different approach, but they work pretty well, and it's become a very common technology now. So as far as quality of them goes, most of them are about the same quality. Some, particularly some of the older ones that have been around a long time, aren't as good as some of the newer ones, but you don't need to spend a lot of money on that stuff. You know, $30, $40 for a cell phone protector is really tops that you should have to spend.
Yeah.
You can feel a difference.
Yeah.
You know, when I first tried one years ago, what I noticed, I had the misfortune of being stuck on a cell phone for 3 hours, and usually I never, ever talk on a cell phone. And normally 10 minutes on a cell phone, my ear would be hot and I'd have a headache.
Yeah.
But with one of those protectors, 3 hours, no heat and no headache. So they definitely work.
And one for your laptop as well, if you have wireless.
Yeah, I put them on everything. I put them on my computers. I put them on my cordless phones. I put one on the main breaker of my house or any building I'm in, so that structures all the electricity flowing through the house, so that all those electrons flowing become coherent as well. And then anything that's in that circuit in your house is going to be put out in much smaller fields. So I have them all over the place.
Mm-hmm. You also had a suggestion for people with insomnia. I know right now there's a lot of spiritual energies, and then you talk about these physical energies. So what is something that someone can do if they're having trouble sleeping at night and getting good sleep?
Well, anytime you have any kind of a health issue, you always have to get tested to find out what the real nature of it is. Because, for example, I make this device called the Rest Shield that will pull you into really deep sleep. But if your issues are around emotional stuff or stress or toxicity in the body, something like that's not going to work. So the first thing to do is get testing. Find out what the nature of it is. What kind of testing, usually the medical tests the doctors do aren't very indicative of what's going on in your body. And I know because I used to work in a pathology lab doing that testing. The kinds of tests that I like to do on myself are quantum biofeedback, which there's a device called a QXCI SCIO, S-C-I-O. And there's also another one called a Zyto, Z-Y-T-O. And those machines, you get hooked up to electrodes, and it measures the scalar signatures of every cell and every atom in your body, and it can tell, it compares your reading with a database of known values, and it can tell if you've got heavy metals, if you've got parasites, if you've got toxins, if you've got cancer or whatever. They're not allowed to be used as diagnostic machines, but in truth, it can tell you a lot about what's going on. And then I will also get a hair analysis, which will show heavy metals and specifically, what kinds and what quantities, and it will show mineral deficiencies and imbalances. And then once you know that, then what I do with myself, because I've run myself into the ground and had to do this, then I know what I need to supplement, and I take in food-based supplements that the body can absorb and build up those, get rid of those deficiencies, and also detox the body using various cleansing techniques. And once you do that, if you cleanse toxins, get rid of acids in the body, stop eating cooked food, do a lot of juicing, raw, green food, and do all that, then the sleep problems will go away. However, I do know that when I first developed this stress shield technology, I slept 8 hours a night. I felt fine. I had lots of energy, felt great. And I didn't know I was missing out on anything. And it wasn't until I built the stress shield and I slept with it, and all of a sudden it was like somebody hit me over the head with a hammer. and what I found out was I had never slept deeply my whole life. And so that's what, I tell people, if you think that you're sleeping just fine, well, try sleeping with one of these scalar devices that will really lower your brain states into delta and theta brainwave states. Because when you do that, then you really know what sleep feels like. And then you heal up faster, you have more energy, you feel better, just everything.
Yeah, see, the problem with juicing, I guess for me, I'm really sensitive to sweet fruits. It just, they're high on the glycemic index, so it kind of shoots me off into like a coma a little bit,
Yeah, and you don't want to be juicing fruit juice very much anyway. But what you can do with stuff like that is heal the glands. Hyperglycemia and diabetes and gland issues like that. You can use herbal extracts to work on the glands and heal them. And when you get the endocrine glands healed up, then hormones regulate, and blood sugar regulates, and digestion regulates, and you don't have those blood sugar swings, so you can eat fruit or sugar. But usually when that happens, you don't really want much of that stuff anyway, and so you'll tend to crave chlorophyll and salads and things that are good for you.
I find licorice root does the trick too as well for your adrenal glands.
Yeah, there are a lot of herbs and foods that will help. I had that problem years ago myself, really bad, and so, I was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and so I had to figure it out for myself, and so I found that, like, certain herbal companies have extracts designed specifically for the endocrine glands, and so I'll use a whole bunch of those, and taking those and then eating right and juicing and detoxifying, that will bring the glands back into balance, and then those issues go away.
Mm-hmm.
When you really understand the real nature of matter and energy and science, that even if they muck up our DNA, or we muck up our DNA, we can still fix it, because the actual pattern, the genetic pattern, is not in the DNA. The DNA is a carrier of the blueprint. It's not the blueprint itself. The actual blueprint is in your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless your consciousness is obliterated, you can still rebuild the DNA from the pattern in the consciousness. If they're looking for information, they should go to beyondrawfood.com. That's where I will either write or create videos where I'll interview other people in all kinds of interesting stuff. So I'm going to be coming out soon with some information about smart meters and what to do about them, and how to prevent the EMF from them. There's a lot you can do. And then my website, mainly with my products, is freshandalive.com, and that's where I have solutions for natural health solutions to maintain health or to heal disease.